Chapter 3. Gladys was walking out as I reached the door, her eyes narrowing at me suspiciously. "You forget something, sugar?" she asked me without moving out of the doorway. "I just thought I'd go find some oil for that door," I lied again. She looked me over again, and I looked up at the door frame. No magnetic lock, no rusty hinge, no sticky lock. In fact, the door seemed to be functioning just fine. My theory about Gladys being a bully was looking less probable. From behind Gladys, Dr. Woodcomb was walking towards us with a scruffy-looking man in his 40s. They were laughing excitedly and shaking hands. Clearly, they were looking to exit, so I stepped aside and Gladys followed me out. The doctor saw me and waved. She was the lead cancer physician and often paused enough to listen to a few songs on Saturday mornings. And she knew my mother. The man walked by me and said back to the doctor, "I'll call you when the article's done so you can get a sneak preview." Dr. Woodcomb smiled and waved back. "What's the big news, Doc?" I asked.
"It seems we broke a record here for cancer survival rates. In the last year, we have surpassed even the Mayo Clinic in percentage of cases that have gone into full remission. The newspaper is doing a full-page article and interviewing several of the patients."
As good as the news was, it was still a little melancholy for me. My mom was part of those statistics. Too bad she can't tell her story. "That's really great, Doc. Finally, you're getting some of that recognition you deserve."
"Huh! I wish I could take the credit. I mean, we run a pretty disciplined ship here, but our equipment and facilities are not state-of-the-art. Maybe now we can get some more funding for new equipment."
She turned and squeezed my arm and went back inside. She felt the melancholy, too. And then there was Gladys, still with that squinty stare. "Gladys, it looks like you're trying to decide whether to eat me or not." She smirked and laughed. That was the first laugh I've witnessed from Gladys.
"Boy, there's not enough meat on your skinny white ass to make a whole meal."
She laughed again, obviously entertained by her joke. At least, I think it was a joke.
"You and I are going for a ride, Finn. And don't act like you have something better to do. You were just about to spend an hour oiling a perfectly functional door. Walk this way."
I smiled and followed her down the sidewalk. I guess Gladys had more to say, but I really was concerned that she had a full-size deep fryer in the back of her minivan, and she had changed her mind about that white meat snack. "What do you have planned, Gladys? I have a policy about getting in strangers' cars." She stopped and looked back at me with a concerned expression.
"There's someone you need to meet, Finn. Things are happening here, and you are involved. I'm sorry I can't explain, but this is important."
Naturally, I was uncomfortable. I knew Gladys well enough after seeing her every week for the past half year, but this was a little strange, and for some reason the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. "Sure, it's nothing." "I think I need to know a little more than that, Gladys. At least tell me where we're going." Gladys just stared at me and pulled the keys out of her massive purse. A beep signaled that the car had unlocked itself.
"Just get in, Finn. I can't explain anything right now, but this is important."
She walked over and climbed in the driver's side. I crossed my arms and just stared back.
"This has to do with your mom, Finn."
I got in. Sure, Gladys knew I had a wide-open gaping wound where my late mother was concerned. But if there was a chance that I could get some level of closure, I was going to take it. We drove through town and over the river, heading dangerously close to the bad side of town. Not that Philadelphia's bad side is more dangerous than any other big cities. But there's a reason why I avoid those parts of town. I don't have a death wish. And I'm white. Sorry, it had to be said. A black guy walking through the other side of town would hardly be noticed, but a white guy walking through the rough neighborhood, I might as well put a giant target on my back and sing show tunes at the top of my lungs. No chance of blending in. After several sharp turns, Gladys stopped short at a yellow light. I glanced over her and saw that she was staring at the rearview mirror.
"You recognize the red racing stripe behind us?" she asked in a flat, serious tone. A smooth character in a gangster movie would have nonchalantly adjusted the side mirror to avoid drawing too much attention. I'm a piano-playing, chemistry-trained white boy, so I instinctively whipped around and stared out the back window. Sure enough, same black Dodge Charger that Tiffany had gotten into. As I turned back to Gladys, I saw that she had her face in her palm, shaking it back and forth. Not subtle enough for her, apparently. "Yeah, that's your good friend Tiffany from the hospital," I said with my normal amount of sarcasm. Gladys raised her head with a smirk, almost like she was glad. "You better buckle up, smart Alec. This might get a little crazy." I laughed. Clearly it was a joke. She was driving a 15-year-old Ford Windstar, but in the back of my mind, I could see her ramming Tiffany for no reason. I was trying to remember if this model had 5-star crash rating. The light turned green and we sat. Several seconds went by and Gladys just looked straight ahead with a tight smile on her face. "Green, Gladys. Hello. Green means go. They put the gas pedal on the right in this model, Gladys." "Gladys?" I reached over to touch her arm, and without looking, she swiftly grabbed my hand and held it firmly, still looking straight ahead. I saw the light turn yellow as several honks came from behind us. A half-second before the light went to red, Gladys stomped the accelerator and the Windstar lunged ahead with more force than a minivan should have. Instinctively, I tried to brace myself, but she had my hand in a death grip. I heard squealing tires behind us as the Charger raced to follow through the red light. Several swear words were moving quickly to the front of my mind on their way to Gladys's ears when her iron grip went ice cold. The air was punctuated with 2 loud pops, and I saw over my shoulder that the Charger had spun out in the intersection, 2 flat tires. Cars from the cross street were already in the intersection, honking and driving around them. This side of town doesn't have much empathy for rich punks with problems. Everybody's got problems here. The chaos behind me was so distinct that I didn't notice that my hand had escaped from the death grip. I flexed my fingers a few times to make sure my livelihood still worked. "What the hell, Gladys? Carry a grudge much? What did she ever do to you?" Gladys just looked straight ahead and drove, 5 under the speed limit, smirk and all. Finally she added, "It's not what she did, it's what she will do." All I could do was laugh. At some point, I will need to contemplate the decisions I made today that got me to this point of crazy. My options here were not good. Stay in the car with the angry donut diva, or jump out and take my chances with the local populace. My hand felt the door handle, and I went through which show tunes would be appropriate for this part of town. That was when the car made a quick right turn between 2 apartment buildings and headed down an alley. About halfway down, a black guy in ripped jeans and a worn leather bomber jacket waved at us. He had dreadlocks and a cigarette hanging from his mouth. Not exactly the welcome reception I would have thought Gladys would have waiting for her. She pulled the car into an open car-sized door under the apartment building. The door closed behind us, and the darkness instantly felt heavy on my chest. The inside dome light popped on as Gladys started getting out of the car. "Stay here and wait for me. I'll be right back." I opened my mouth to object, but she was already gone. This was a bad movie. Dumb white guy foolishly falls for the seductive, alluring invitations of a long-legged temptress, or in this case, an overweight, middle-aged black woman with control issues, whatever. I'm probably on my way to being sold into the sex slave industry in the developing Eastern European underground. I tried the handle on the door to see if escaping was even an option, and the handle wouldn't budge, like it was jammed. Yep, my good years were definitely behind me. Without warning, the door popped open and dome light went on. There is a possibility I crapped myself a little. Standing right outside the door was a young white boy of 11 or 12. His hair was unkempt, his shirt was untucked and too big, but his jeans were about an inch too short, with scuff marks on the knees. If I didn't know any better, I would say that I'd been looking at me 15 years ago. That was when I noticed he was missing a hand. We just stared at each other uncomfortably for several seconds. My mind was desperately trying to process this unlikely pile of circumstances when he spoke. "I'm glad you finally decided to come, Finn. We've been waiting a long time." "What do you mean, waiting for me? And how do you know my name?" "Most of us thought they would have restarted you by now. Not me, though. I knew you'd make it." I swallowed hard and stared into the gray eyes of the one-hand greeter. This was turning out to be far stranger than my normal Saturday. Damn it. Looks like another herpes flare-up could be coming. Figuratively, of course. Because I don't have herpes. Seriously.